Bonsoir tout le monde. Good evening, everyone. Special welcome to all of the red shirts out there tonight. Nice to see you. Welcome to the Kin Club. What are you guys doing here? Didn't you have a meeting tonight or something? Oh, okay. All right, let's get started. Roll call. All members of council are present. Thank you. Stand for territorial land acknowledgement.
Nous reconnaissons que nous sommes sur le territoire non cédé des Anishinaabe et les terres traditionnelles des peuples Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat et Kanien'kehá:ka. Nous reconnaissons notre obligation commune de respecter, d'honorer et de préserver ces terres et les ressources naturelles qu'elles contiennent.
Merci, Conseillère Deakin. Whereas Canada is founded upon the principle that recognizes the supremacy of God and the rule of law, let us take a moment of personal reflection.
Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command, car ton bras s'est porté les pères, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits. God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Merci. We're moving to item 4, additions, deletions, or amendments. Seeing none. Item 5, adoption of the agenda. A motion to approve the agenda as presented. This is moved by Councillor Lawrence, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Call for the vote. All in favor? And pass. Thank you very much. Item 7, adoption of minutes. Regular council minutes from March 10th. Motion to approve the following minutes as presented. See, there I go again. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Bear with me for a second. My papers got upside down here. Yeah, I just have to find my... All right, disclosure of pecuniary interests. Seeing none? Thank you. Item 7. Adoption of minutes. So motion to approve the minutes from regular council meeting on March 10th, 2025. This is moved by Councillor Deakin, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. Call for the vote. All in favor? And passed. Presentations. All right. A, citizens recognition for community service and volunteerism. So this is a great part of the evening for us, and I'm very happy and proud to be here to do this. So, ladies and gentlemen, bonsoir tout le monde. Thank you for joining us in this special occasion to celebrate the spirit of volunteerism, which is truly the lifeblood of this municipality. Tonight, this council is honored to recognize the incredible contributions made by individual volunteers of the Russell Kin Club. Through their unwavering commitment and participation in numerous initiatives, these volunteers significantly shape our community and demonstrate what can be achieved when we come together with a shared vision of support and enhancing community well-being. Excuse me. Before I focus on the particular project that we're all here to celebrate, Let us acknowledge some of the impactful initiatives that the Kin Club and their volunteers have been involved in over the years. So the Russell Sports Dome project, where their contribution and fundraising efforts amounting to over $380,000 supported the development of our fantastic recreational facility. Pout Masters Fishing Derby, doing their annual participation since 2014, fosters community spirit and family values and promotes our local natural resources. Fort Mac, We've Got Your Back. They rallied to support those affected by the Fort McMurray, Alberta fires, showcasing our community's compassion and solidarity all the way across the country. There is Marchons pour Jonathan, Butterfly Mile. They helped raise awareness and over $60,000 for EB research, uniting our community behind this poignant cause. Of course, the Jonathan Pitt Park, where they raised over $6,000 to support the creation of this fully accessible park in our community. The Russell Signs Project added beautiful signage welcoming people to our community. The project, I believe, worth over $130,000. Their support for the rec complex, with almost $67,000 so far raised towards the complex. And also currently working with the township to develop a community storage project supporting local community organizations. Somewhere estimated a project worth about $500,000. And I'm just scratching the surface of your accomplishments. Having said all that, tonight we highlight their particular contribution through all the work done with the Catch the Ace lottery project. This initiative is not just a fundraiser, it's a testament to the power of the community effort, having raised over $4.6 million for local charities and awarded more than $5 million in prizes. So it stands currently as one of the most significant initiatives of its kind in Ontario, bringing financial support to amazing community organizations and positive attention to our township across all of Ontario. The success of the Catch the Ace lottery, now in its seventh iteration, could not have been possible without the core team's dedication and hard work. These remarkable individuals that we're going to celebrate tonight have given their time, talent, and tireless effort to our community, and it is absolutely my honor and the honor of this council to recognize each of you here tonight. So as I call your name, if you can just stand, please. So first of all, I would ask Len Tremblay, Treasurer, to stand. Len, whose expertise in financial management ensures integrity and accountability through the project. We have Diane Hayes, who takes care of marketing, who significantly amplifies important messaging and promotion about the Catch the Ace initiative. Sheila Peckford, Project Manager, whose meticulous management is the backbone of Catch the Ace success. We have Dan Carbonell, I saw Dan coming in there, whose technical skills keep operations running smoothly and efficiently. Luis da Silva and Jim Gray, technical support, together ensuring that everything is running without a hitch. I believe we have Sherry and Valerie, but they're not here tonight, who are responsible for ticketing process. So they manage crucial ticketing processes. Imagine how many tickets we're talking about when we say over $9.6 million raised through this lottery. That's a lot of tickets. Lebo Habits, marketing materials distribution, who ensures the Catch the Ace message reaches far and wide. Bill McInnes and Ruben Tate, responsible for sales, whose strategic approaches greatly enhance fundraising efforts. I have to say that Bill tried to sell me a ticket as he was coming in right now. So he stands true to his word. Karine Boucher, although Karine is not a member of the Kin Club, she's with Foodland. She is a key partner in this Catch the Ace, and without her efforts and support, these numbers wouldn't be possible. So Karine is represented by Renata. Renata's here. Thank you, Renata, for being. Front-end manager, for Foodland. Thank you for being here. So collectively, these volunteers have dedicated over 30,000 hours to Catch the Ace initiative since its inception. So I did the math on that. And to put that in perspective, this represents more than 3 years of continuous round-the-clock work, which is absolutely a monumental contribution to our community, and for which we are all eternally grateful. So I would ask all the volunteers that I named here today, or now, to stand again, and I would ask our fellow councillors here to come down and award you with the medal, and we'll take a picture. So a big round of applause for you. Thank you. If all the members can come up after you receive your medal, we'd like to take a group picture. So I'd just like the volunteers with the medals to come up for a group picture. I think figure out what is the best way. Past the door. Yeah, exactly. You're the tall guy, you should be down here. Climb over the Sure. We need all the council members. Do we have everyone? Good. Before any of the kin members leave, I do want to address something. I'll just let everyone get back to their seat. So I have to tell you, as members of the Kin Club, and I'm sure anyone who's watching this is probably wondering why Doug and Cindy weren't involved in this. And I was told in no uncertain way that I was not allowed to include them for this ceremony. So I was a little troubled by that, but I gave my word to Doug that I wouldn't give him one of these medals. And so respecting their wishes, I held back. However, I didn't say about any other possible award. So now let us take a minute to acknowledge two individuals who prefer to stay in the background but deserve the spotlight. Doug and Cindy Anthony, please stand. So your unwavering support has been crucial to every initiative we've celebrated here tonight. Beyond that, you've offered your home as the heart of the Kin Club activities. I've seen that in full operation. I don't know how you do it. And so congratulations. And it's the headquarters for the Catch the Ace and the studio downstairs, which is absolutely amazing when you see that. And the two of you embody true community spirit. Your humility and leadership not only make a significant impact here, but also represent our community so brilliantly across the region. In fact, Doug is set to receive the King Charles III Coronation Medal later this week. Congratulations for that as well. And this is a testament to the recognition of the work you do beyond our township. So therefore, it is my profound honor, on behalf of this council, to present for the first time ever in our township history, the key to our township, to both Doug and Cindy Anthony. So I'd like you to come up.
Thanks for keeping your word.
Yeah, if we can get all council members to come down, and all members of the come forward with that as well.
Don't give that to our daughter, we'll lose it.
You got the run of the building now. Do we all fit in here? Yeah, let's go back and do this again.
You should be beside them. And then I'm taller.
I can see. You may only get one eye. I can see.
Sheila, come on that side. I should be.
You want to make me taller? Yes.
Congratulations again. Thank you for everything you guys do. That's a good point. Doug and Cindy, without wanting to put you further into spotlight, did you want to say a few words, share a few words? If you don't mind, if you want to come up to the lectern. Thank you, Lisa.
You screwed up my initial speech, Your Worship. Your Worship, councillors, esteemed staff, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the entire Cash-In-Lieu team, thank you for this tremendous honor. And it is humbly accepted by all of us. These guys are amazing, and I'm so proud of them.
Here, here.
This Cash-In-Lieu lottery, now in its 8th year, has literally been a labor of love. These dedicated and professional philanthropists who have made our Cash-In-Lieu lottery one of the most successful in the entire province. They love giving back. They love doing altruistic causes. And all of us are tremendously appreciative of your accolades here tonight. We are very fortunate to live in the township of Russell. It's an incredible community, and it inspires and espouses volunteerism. And gros merci pour tout ce que vous avez fait ce soir. Thank you so much for what you've done this evening. These guys rock. So proud of you guys. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you all. I realize you have a meeting tonight. You can be excused or you can hang out and just, I'll leave that up to you. We'll take 30 seconds here and before we proceed. Thank you. Thank you all. Appreciate it.
It's an accomplishment for Doug and Cindy.
Yeah, they didn't expect that piece. That was good. All right, we're good to go. So item 9, delegations, we have none. Item 10, consent items. All items listed under the consent items will be enacted by one motion. So we'll start with pay lists, February 2025. And that's it. Yeah, that's it. Anything to add to that, Monsieur Dagenet, on that one, or? No? So, motion that all items listed under the consent items be received as presented. This is moved by Councillor Deacon, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? Passed. Thank you. Item 11, reports from department and council committees. A, zoning bylaw amendment report PD 2025-07, property known as 1355 Wade Road, Russell. Anything to add on that, Monsieur Bourgon? No? Questions, comments, members of council? Hearing, seeing none. Thank you. Item B, Cash-In-Lieu of parking agreement report PD 2025, 1097 Concession Street, Russell. Anything to add on that, Monsieur Bourgon?
Merci, Monsieur Maire. So I can add that comes to council after a request received from a property owner in Russell. So therefore, for the proposed use that he wants to add to on his property, he needs an extra or a net of 5 more parking space, and that's where the proposal of a cash-in-lieu of those parking spots came in front of council.
Okay, so just for a clarification, I think I understand why, but the reason this didn't go through the planning committee and committee of adjustments is because it's not considered a minor variance, it's more major than a minor. Is that correct?
In part, so it's not considered a minor since there's 4 tests that needs to be done on the request, if I can use that term, to be determined as a minor variance.
Okay.
Which that one doesn't qualify. So after back and forth with the proponent, that option of cash-in-lieu came about instead of going through like a zoning change or a minor variance.
Okay, and normally, when this would come up, so there is no other provision that requires this from going through the planning committee?
Unless it would have been like under a zoning change per se, no.
Okay, all right. So I'll just go through mine now. Do you have that specific to that, Councillor Lorraine?
I'll talk to zoning.
Okay, go ahead.
My question is that property zoned in order to actually be able to have a vehicle parked on the front lawn for commercial purposes?
Monsieur Bourgon?
So with the being village core, the use is allowed, but they would still need to acquire a permit to have that type of operation.
That's correct. That was identified.
Yeah, that was highlighted in the report.
Okay, so zoning allows for a chip truck outside of the missing refreshment vehicle license that you were just referring to, and parking. Are there any other issues in terms of adding a food truck onto a lot that already has 2 or 3 other businesses, including another restaurant? Are there any issues?
I mean, there's other concern raised by other departments as well, but in terms of the planning or the parking, at this time, no.
Okay.
And they highlighted the fact that the opening hours would differ as well.
Yeah, so I had that as a comment as well. In terms of opening hours, I think that any proponent that comes with an argument around opening hours, I think is relatively weak, considering those could be changed after we rule on something. So I wouldn't take that into account in my thoughts. I'll pass on the questions. I've got a couple more here. So that was my expected hours. The planning department states that there should be a total of 9 spots, right? So 4 plus 5, correct?
Correct.
So 4 existing, and the 4 existing is one alleyway where we can fit 4 cars, but not necessarily park 4 cars like of, say, customers coming in and out, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So the plus 5 with the new chip truck, we set $1,500 for 3 spots. Why did we just say $1,500? First of all, the amount, and also why did we just say only 3 and not 5? Just from a trying to understand the logic behind it.
The amount are not highlighted in our user fee bylaw.
So, okay.
So that's why like it needs to be highlighted this way in the report. We felt like 3 was reasonable in terms of amount. But I mean, council could take the decision to impose for the 5 in terms of fee.
But there is no policy or bylaw that dictates, because we don't have this technically within our user fees.
In the user fee bylaw, in terms of the amount to charge, no. We have a policy, like the Cash-In-Lieu policy, but not related to the specific amounts.
So eventually that should get addressed at some point, right?
Yeah, so on a side note, administration have that marked down for our next review of our user fee bylaw.
Okay, thank you. And then in reading it, I see that bylaw does not support the request. So can I hear from bylaw as to why the request is not supported? Madame Bourdeau?
Good evening. The reasoning behind this non-support, I guess, is we presently have a school crossing with a crossing guard at that location. And I've also taken the traffic count for that Concession Street. The traffic count is provided by infrastructure. And there's the north side approach and the south side approach. So between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m., the count was 3920, so 3,920. And Craig Street, I only have the west approach during the same period of time, and it's 2,200. So there's a lot of traffic. It's very high volume. And there's a crossing for school with a crossing guard at that location, which was, we did a gap analysis, and the crossing guard was warranted. So I think that it's not the best situation to add on to the already existing parking situation in that area.
Merci beaucoup, c'est apprécié. Can I go to council members with any questions and comments? Councillor Deacon?
Thank you. I'd just like a clarification on the current parking situation that's there. So is it that 4 are required, or is it that 4 are considered to be there? Because I see a driveway where folks would go in and be able to park just like if you were visiting a friend, but I'm not seeing actual parking spaces with curbs and lines drawn. So if I could just get clarification if that is considered 4 official parking spots for the purpose of the current uses?
Monsieur Bourgon?
Yes, so those 4 spaces are considered parking space for the property, for the usage proposed.
So with
For
the current,
usage.
if I may, with the current businesses in place there, 4 is enough?
And we need to consider as well the fact that it's in village core, so some usage are requiring less parking space.
Because of this,
Yeah,
okay.
being village
So,
core. And there's-
okay. But right now, the business, the way it's structured with 4 spots, they meet the requirement.
Yeah, and it create the new add-on, if I can use that term, creates the net of increasing by 5.
5, thank you. Councillor Deacon?
Yeah, so just to follow up, looking at an aerial of the property, it's a property that clearly was a residence at one point and is now a hub of commercial activity, which is fantastic to see in our village core. I'm wondering why, or if there's an opportunity to actually put in a proper parking lot on that lot that could meet some of the parking needs as the commercial activity on that property we're all hoping can expand. To me, there's a squeeze happening there where the driveway is not able to, it's not serving all of the purposes of the parking that is required there, but that there could be an opportunity for that to be turned into an appropriate parking lot.
So I guess that would be up to the proponent to decide if they do that.
Right.
With recommendations from here. The request here is if we accept this Cash-In-Lieu parking agreement at this stage, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And if council refused the Cash-In-Lieu, then we can go back to proponent and reiterate the fact that he would need to rethink of that collaboration between different businesses and how can accommodate parking or redone a site plan entirely.
Okay, any other questions, comments? Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, first thing I have to agree with bylaw. I'm worried about the congestion in there. There is some on-street parking there, but that is a very busy intersection. The questions that I have concern two things. Were the neighbors consulted, and is there a setback for mobile food serving trailers, trucks, or whatever in our zoning bylaws?
Thank you, Councillor. Monsieur Bourgon?
The neighbors were not consulted in that issue, and I don't know the answer about setback. I would need to come back to council. I don't have that info in hand.
Thank you. Councillor Lauren?
And that's one of the things, like you were mentioning, why it didn't go to the other committee. That would have required notification to the 120 meters around. I know that the neighbors to the north, I guess that would be, having attended that as a music academy at one point in time, the neighbors to the north are not receptive to the traffic that is there, nor should they need to be, with the parking the way it is now. Yes, there is one, maybe two on-street parking there on the side closest to them, and there is some on the opposite side, but very dangerous, very difficult to access, especially in the winter, where there wouldn't be any ability to do anything there. Now, I don't know if they'd be operating in the wintertime or not, probably not, but I would suggest that now that they're thinking of adding this additional business, that they rethink their front yard area and look at making a proper parking lot with possible lanes in, lanes out kind of thing. I can't support it the way it's being asked today. Therefore, I think we're asking to separate this item out, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Conseiller Lalonde?
Thank you. I have a few concerns regarding the parking and the issue of public safety, but I think first I need to say that I am one of the residents, I'm one of the neighbors. My house is directly across the street from this business, and my wife operates a business in our own home, an art school. So to the points that were made earlier, yeah, there was no opportunity by the residents to comment, and I appreciate the situation with regards to the minor variance, or it being considered more than that, meaning why it didn't go to the Committee of Adjustments. And but by the same token, it may well have been considered for the Planning Advisory Committee, except that it's not really a zoning issue either. So it's sort of ça tombe en deux chaises, comme on dit en français. So it comes to rest on council to now have to look at this and consider the pros and the cons. So I just prepared a couple quick notes because I didn't want to ramble on too much. I wanted to keep it to the issue of the parking and the public safety issue that I see. And I just want to give a little bit of background and information for the rest of the members of council and the public with regards to the location. So the current parking situation at this location has created real problems for neighboring homes at 1092, 1093, and 1095 Concession Street. Driveway entrances are regularly blocked, either partially or completely. This has been going on for a number of years now. Few homeowners have had to drive, in fact, over part of their own property, their lawns, to enter their driveways to get into their parking spaces, and that has happened as recently as the last few weeks. Several complaints have been registered with bylaw over the past number of years. Parking tickets have, in fact, been issued, as I understand it, from one of the neighbors. And the property owner has been approached on a number of occasions, as well as the vehicle owners themselves, but with little or no effect. There are currently 3 different businesses activities taking place in the converted bungalow property in question. There's a school, there's a daycare, there's a music academy, and there's an indoor restaurant, which also offers music events on Friday nights. The suggestion that there are currently 4 parking spaces at the property is not actually accurate because, as was mentioned earlier, the driveway that's there now serves also as the main access to the building. So they are necessarily staggering 2 cars often during the week, on a daily basis actually, to make sure that the front closest to the house is always kept open so that people can move in and out of the main entrance to the building. So really there's only about 2 parking spaces able to be used at any time there. So that means to say that it's not really that there are 5 spaces with this new addition that are missing. There's actually 2 in the existing 4 that aren't available for use either. So we're really talking about closer to 6, 7 spaces that are missing at that property location at this point. The proposal to add a 4th business now to that property in the form of a curbside food truck will make what is currently for us a problematic street parking situation even worse, and will serve to create a new traffic safety issue as well. So the traffic, which again was touched on by a member council, the food truck that's the location proposed puts it within about 15 feet of the corner or the crosswalk area. That means to say any cars that are turning north from Craig Street or coming from the south going north may be quite surprised by a vehicle just getting ready to leave and then stopping again to want to pull into the chip wagon stand. They won't be ready for that. And as Madame Bordeaux referred to earlier, it is probably the busiest traffic area in the village, the intersection certainly that I'm aware of, living right out in front of it and walking down the street. So it's for those reasons, and not to go into other reasons of the look and feel of the neighborhood or the heritage homes that surround that house or the design in general. It's ironic because we have just maybe about 50 yards down a newer building with 2 businesses and a couple of apartments, but who were made to come up with, I think, 10, 11, 12 parking spaces to go with that business, which they have and which has taken the cars off the street in that area for that purpose. So on the one hand, we're looking to consider 6 or 7 missing spaces and take some money for that. And on the other, just a few doors down, you have someone who was able to come up with just about all the spaces required in it, which I think was the right way to go. So I leave my comments on those 2 issues only for the time being, and I support the idea of separating it out for a vote later. It's a proposal that I wouldn't be able to support. Thanks.
Merci, conseiller Lalonde. Alors, l'item B va être adressé séparément. Alors, on tombe à l'item C, 2024 Statement of Remuneration and Council Expenses Report CSAS-FS 2025-03. Anything to add, Monsieur Dagenet? No? Si vous pouvez juste me confirmer que all the amounts are within approved budget limits and expectations? Yeah, merci. And we're receiving this report. It's a standard at the end of the year that we receive, right? So any questions, comments, members of council? Seeing none, thank you. Moving to item D, Municipal Class Environmental Assessment Report, ISPW 2025-04. So we are receiving this report tonight. Monsieur Bourgon, anything to add?
Merci, Monsieur le maire. Donc, exactement, ce soir, le rapport présenté au conseil. Puis, si c'est bien reçu, on va pouvoir avancer à la prochaine étape. So our last step will be to issue the notice of completion, which that's the last step in our environmental, municipal Class CA environmental assessment. So with that 30-day, once we're done that second 30-day review, project is now completed and we can proceed to construction.
Excellent.
So to give just a quick background to council, We had our public meeting back in May 24, which different options was presented to the members of public. From all those comments received, not necessarily the best option at that time, but based on those comments, the third option became the best option in that scenario. And so that's what's recommended in our study. So if supported by council tonight, and after the next 30 days, that's the model we'll use to go to construction.
Excellent. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Bourgon. I wanted to just highlight the point that in the public meeting, we did have great discussions with residents for those of us that were here, and that idea did come up as a preferred option, and I'm glad to see that public input had made an impact. And so it's great to see that at work. So it really underscores the importance of that public feedback. So just reconfirming what you're stating to us is that the notice of completion will be sent out by next week. And by the end of April, if anyone wants to file a Part 2 order, otherwise the EA is considered approved. It doesn't come back to council again, correct?
That's correct. Council will see when we're ready to award the contract for construction. That would be the next item in that full project coming back to council.
Excellent. Merci beaucoup. Questions, commentaires, membres du conseil? Conseillère Deakin?
I just want to echo some of the mayor's comments about the time and the effort and the energy that residents put in to come to the open houses to make sure that their comments were getting into staff. It's not their full-time job, and they're following the issue closely, and so I really want to share my appreciation for them coming out.
Merci, Conseillère Deakin. Conseiller Lalonde.
Yeah, just a clarification on page 12 of that report and the recommended option at this point, which is option 3. It shows for now in the drawing or the photo on Imal Street, a red line going all the way into Edie Road, although there would be a cul-de-sac there. Is that really where the red line ends, right up against the road, or is it likely to be in some amount of distance because of proposed buffers and what have you? If you could just clarify that, Mr. Mayor.
Merci, Conseiller Lalonde. Can we put that on the screen so we can all be...
I can answer the question. That's the picture for option 2. So you need to go on page 13 to see the appropriate picture that goes with that option. So it really highlight putting a dead end and created a buffer zone in between the properties being developed and the residential homes.
Conseiller Lalonde?
Just to follow, I appreciate the clarification, because I'm looking, I see figure 3, but option 2, so I'm sorry about that. So option 3 then, which is indeed on the next page, figure 4, shows a bit of a roundabout, or that's... Okay.
A cul-de-sac.
Because I didn't see that as a cul-de-sac, but the roundabout de facto is the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, appreciate that. Thanks for clarifying.
Because it needs to be wide enough for trucks to turn around in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, thanks very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so again, I think that option is really happy to see that option. It does give residents that are on Edie Road that had major concerns a long-term knowledge that, we're finishing there at this point. So that's excellent. Any other comments or questions? Excellent. Thank you, council members, for the feedback. Moving to item E, lease for the relocation of the Embrym Library Branch, report CSAS-LIB 2025-01. Monsieur Dagenet, anything to add?
Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Tonight, I'm pleased to provide you with an update on the relocation project for the Embrym Library Branch. Significant progress has been made since Council provided direction on August 26, 24. Following that meeting, the Township signed a letter of intent with the co-op to secure a suitable new location for our library. Subsequently, in partnership with the Library Board, the interior layout design was approved. Since then, our legal team has worked closely and effectively with the co-op representative to finalize a comprehensive lease agreement. This agreement clearly reflects all terms and conditions previously approved by council, ensuring alignment with your expectation. The proposed lease will enable the township to relocate the library to a modern, accessible facility, meeting both current and future needs of our community. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Dagenet. I'd like to see this project moving forward. J'ai quelques questions. Premièrement, je voudrais juste affirmer comme quoi que j'apprécie beaucoup que la municipalité retient le contrôle du design en dedans de la bibliothèque. Alors, je suis content qu'on a réussi à avoir ça. Et aussi, d'ailleurs, je suis très content de voir que our procurement policy safeguards have been put into this as well. Even though the owner will be doing some of the purchasing, they're using our procurement policy. So I think that's very good to have this in there. I did ask earlier on, and I believe you sent me an email just for public consumption. We are going to have some sort of payment schedule that's going to be part of the lease, correct?
Yes.
Okay, it's not a one lump sum deal. Okay. The possession grace period of 1 year, in my opinion, seems a little overly generous. I wanted to ask, and perhaps without putting you on the spot, Councillor Deacon, if the library has that flexibility in terms of the move, and I'm not sure if you're able to answer that on sitting on the board, but without putting you on the spot, and we can just come back to that.
I think it's best to come back. There is back and forth between the school boards. I'm not sure if administration would have a sense of when the deal with the school board, if notice has been given, or, but it would be a matter of looking into that and ensuring that the timelines align well.
Yeah. So my biggest concern is just to ensure that that flexibility that we're providing, that we have a reciprocal flexibility from the school board so that we're not stuck at any point, and also to have some sort of control over that 1 year period, what happens if it goes above and beyond that 1 year. Not that we're expecting it, and we have great respect for the co-op, and I'm very comfortable with the process moving forward, but just in terms of protecting the township. I think it would make sense to have that understanding. Does that make sense? Those are my comments. So questions, comments, members of council. So Councillor Deacon.
Yeah, there's a spot in the report that says it kind of acknowledges the township co-op relationship, and it's in two senses, and I just want to get clarity. After signing a lease, if the co-op does not receive its building permit, which it would be obtaining from the township, within 180 days, it may either grant an extension or terminate the lease. Just recognizing that in this case, we're both the leasee as the township, as well as the entity that would be deciding whether to approve the building permit or not. I want to make sure that we're protected from any confusion between those roles and any undue pressure that could come about.
Excellent question. Monsieur Dagenet, Monsieur Godin.
It was clear with the co-op every time we had the discussion that right now we're working on a lease. I was the representative of the administration to do this, and I have no control on what's going on with the Department of Building and Planning. So that's two different things. The reason we've put this clause in is the co-op needed an out clause. If ever they don't have the building permit, that means there's no building. That means they need to be able to resign the lease. So that's why and there's also a question of timing. If the more time it takes for them to get the building permit, the less time they have until winter, the next winter to build. Like the goal is to finish out all the exterior before winter so they can finish the interior during winter. So that's why the 6 months is important. If they don't get all the necessary permits in time, then in 6 months we'll have a decision to take. Do we grant them an extension? Well, they'll take the decision, but it'll be in collaboration with us. So.
Okay, Councillor Deacon, is that follow up?
I'm just not sure because there's so much of the aspect of the building permit being approved that's in the co-op's hands. If they apply for a building permit that doesn't meet the township's requirement, or they apply for it at such a point that is very late, as a leasee, I would just be concerned that the project is at risk by a factor that the township doesn't have control over. Just recognizing, I guess, the vulnerability of the township on that. Thank you.
Yeah, considering the payment schedule that's implied as well here, and I'm sure we're guaranteed on those payments. It should the project fall through, which we have no inclination to think that it would, but in terms of protecting ourselves, we're guaranteed those payments back, right?
No, it's all, like, when the building permit is gonna be
Issued?
issued, we're gonna be giving the first 5%.
Okay, so not until the
There's
building,
nothing
so,
before
okay.
that, so.
Councillor Deacon, is that good? Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, two things. One is on the section of tenants prerequisites. So if you just drop down one, go down. Oh, sorry, the other way. Go up. Okay. It says construction costs for the library fit out must be equal to or less than 10% above the initial budget of $500,000. Does that mean we have a $500,000 budget for fit out plus a 10% contingency?
Monsieur Dagenet?
The 10% contingency is not in the budget, but it's just for us to be able to take a decision faster. So if it's inside the 10%, then we can go ahead and continue and proceed with the project. And then this is a 2-year project, so we can amend the budget in 26 to compensate if it is going over 10% of the budget.
Follow up, Councillor?
Okay, yeah. Another one is on the section of lease terms and financial conditions. It says there, and I think the mayor's already touched on it, but I'm not sure. It says the township will pay $1.875 million for the 15-year lease prior to possession. Does that mean our lease is in a lump sum, essentially, for the 15 years, and we have nothing more to pay?
I believe that's correct. We had the previous, before you were on council, there was discussions in terms of looking at costs, value, and the value that we received by getting that guaranteed lease rate with a prepayment is what made this an attractive deal for the municipality. So yes, that's correct. Anything else to add on that, Mr. Desjardins? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's right.
That's very unusual. So I'm a little concerned about that particular clause.
Councillor
Let
Lord?
me think.
I don't know if you have the numbers there in front of you, but we're getting the space at $25 a square foot versus the commercial rate in this area, which is, what, approximately double that right now? If I'm not mistaken, somewhere in the...
Well, right now, when we did our research, we were around $30.
Was it 30? I thought it was
Yeah.
more than that.
At the current rate, not
The current-
over the next...
Yeah.
Plus increase.
Yeah, over the 15
Yeah.
years, right?
So we're
that
locked
doesn't
in
increase.
we're locked in at
Exactly.
25 for 15 years.
And I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, we did do a financial calculation on that and see the net present value of the investment versus buying. Perhaps it wouldn't be a good idea if that calculation, or it's public domain, I believe, for Councillor Armstrong to be able to see that, I think.
Good for that information.
Councillor Lauren?
Can I ask that just be something that comes back at the next meeting in the items coming from this meeting? Just put in that report, probably be good. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Conseiller Lalonde?
Thank you. So I imagine work they're hoping to get started soon. And I guess the challenge is we're all aware of all the road work that's going to take place this year, this summer, all the way through the fall if I'm not mistaken, and it's going to run right in front of that area. I know there's been some mention of how is that going to work for a lot of the businesses. I imagine in discussions with the co-op that maybe they're aware better than anyone of what this is going to mean in terms of impediments or obstacles for the build with the street being shut off. Have they discussed that with staff, and did they understand that well, and did they have a plan to deal with all that? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Monsieur Dagenet, Monsieur Bourgon.
Well, they fully understand that the Notre Dame will be in reconstruction this year, next year. They had a meeting with Monsieur Bourgon and myself 3-4 months ago to start the discussion on this. They're working on a traffic study right now with the Comté, so they know what's going on,
Aware of
and they even they're aware of it.
Merci. Juste clarification, Monsieur Bourgon, je sais que le projet de Notre-Dame, c'est sur 2 ans. Est-ce que c'est une section, l'autre n'est pas touchée, puis après ça, l'année d'après, l'autre section, puis l'autre est finie? C'est ça l'idée ou on ne le sait pas encore?
Le gros du travail va être par section, mais il va y avoir des travaux pour venir compléter les voies du overlap entre les sections, dépendant des travaux. Donc, juste pour reconfirmer que oui, la coop sont au courant, il y a des travaux qui vont pouvoir prendre place en même temps que les travaux de la rue Notre-Dame. Donc, en fait, pour maximiser le tout pour les 2 parties.
OK. Formidable. Any other questions or comments? Merci. On s'en va à l'item F, 2026 Municipal Elections Voting Method Report, CSAS CL 2025-01. Anything to add, Madame Camille Laflamme?
Oui, bonsoir, Monsieur le Maire, membres du Conseil. So as you can see, we're already planning for the 2026 municipal elections. So as usual, we're presenting the first report just to know how does council want to go ahead for the voting method for the elections. I know we had internet and telephone in the past years, so I'm asking and recommending going only internet this year. And we also ask that we continue to work with other municipalities in the Prescott Russell area so that we can prepare a solid RFP to get a good supplier for our internet election again.
So 2 questions from my end. Going strictly internet does not prevent a resident who has no access to computers and is perhaps even very scared of touching a computer. They can still come into the municipality through the entire voting period and be assisted in voting through our computers here. We'll have a station set up, correct?
Yes, correct. Maybe not during night, but we have the voter help desk
Yeah,
that's
regular
available.
hours of
Yes, for at
operations.
least, usually we start on the Wednesday up to the Monday, and we have some hours every day that we can assist.
That also includes us going into some of the retirement homes?
Yes, we have.
And we'll have the equipment as well?
Yes.
Okay, and in terms of your colleagues across the counties, is everyone moving in this direction?
From what we spoke a few weeks ago, yes, already 2 of them had voted exactly with only the internet at the last 2022 elections.
Okay,
One municipality wasn't internet or telephone, so that wasn't included. And all the others are now planning to present to their council this week or in the next few weeks for internet voting
internet only?
Yes.
Okay, and then the idea, if we are all in agreement, or whoever's in agreement with the internet only, gives us more buying power when we go looking for the software or whatever we're going to do in terms of saving money with one system that'll be across multiple municipalities, correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, saving a little bit of money if we don't have the 2, but also there's less providers now that go ahead with telephone.
Okay.
So not all of them
Are
can
able.
supply both.
So that increases the number of companies that could service us if we're internet only.
Yes, and what's
Okay.
happening is that's why we're going early, so we can go at the conference and go and check what's outside, because right now, there's not much. We don't know what's available. So this way, we can go ahead and look, and we will come back to council for sure. Like, we would like to send out the invitation maybe around September, the RFP, and then come back to council before the end of the year with a contract if we
Okay.
find
Merci.
a suitable company.
Merci beaucoup. Question, commentaire, membre du conseil. Conseiller Laurent?
I have a few questions. The first one is, I don't know if you have the numbers there, but do you know how many people voted in each one of those elections?
Yes, they're in the report.
No, I don't see them.
At the bottom of.
I see the
left.
percentages, I don't see the number of.
The number, oh, okay.
So if you can look for that. Secondly, in terms of the help center, we have the help center here. Is there anything that limits us from having a help center located in other areas of the municipality?
Like the arenas or something like that?
No, that would be, that could be done. It's just that we would need more people, more IT, more computers, more everything, more accessibility, make sure the accessibility is available. Because right now, it's only staff that's been working, so we don't pay anybody to.
Right, but in terms of the cost and accessibility of having computers there to be a help center versus having tabulators, that would be the better option, I would assume, from a costing perspective.
Yes, we would probably have to go and rent some computers or a tablet, or because we don't have all the others that would be needed, probably. But if it's only one or two, depending on the size and the place, that's something we can look ahead with the counties and.
So I'm going to continue on with my request. I've asked this every single time this comes up in every election, is I still believe that there should be the ability for somebody to come in and check a box on a piece of paper and allow them to vote. Understanding that we're now considering not even having telephone voting. And if I look at the numbers, and I know you have the numbers, but.
I have them now, if you
Okay,
want them.
yeah, if you don't mind.
So you want the,
2014,
in total?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
total votes.
So 2014, the voter turnout was 4,671.
Yep.
The by-election in 2014 was 4,264.
Mm-hmm.
2018, 6,058.
Mm-hmm.
2022 was 4,773. And the last by-election last year was 3,746.
Okay, so even using 2022 as probably the lowest turnout, that's 4,773 times 9.3%. Right? 9.3% of the people voted by phone. That's 443 votes. That to me is significant. And not having the ability to walk in and check a box. And yes, I understand they could all come here.
That's the total of people that voted, 4,773.
Right. 4,773.
It's right there, the
And you said
9.3.
9.3% voted by phone. 9.73% of 4,773 is 443 votes.
Okay, sorry, I heard 4,000.
No,
Okay.
443 people. So for some reason, they chose not to use the internet. They chose not to come here. They chose to use the telephone. We're taking that away. I mean, even in the by-election from this year, 3,746 times.
13.6, it's right up there.
Does it say the number up there?
No, but it's 13.6 is what you're.
Yes, but I'm trying to get to the amount of people,
Oh.
is my point. Yeah, so over 500 people would not have voted in this election, in the by-election. And the margin of error is just too high to not continue on with the telephone vote, and again, not having the ability to walk in and put an X on it, I can't support the request to go just internet. And if that's the way council votes, I will add another amendment to it to request that we have, on election day, have help centers in different locations across the municipality to allow people to go in, to make it more accessible for them to vote. And I understand they could do it from home. For some reason, they're choosing not to. We need to provide that option to them. So I'm going to ask that this item would be dealt with separately, and I'll do the amendments as I see them come up. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, I've got to support Councillor Roy's concern about the percentage of the electorate that comes out to vote each year. We've seen these numbers, but those numbers are absolute numbers compared to the actual electorate numbers. We've generally seen a decline in the number of voters, and regardless, it's always a low percentage. Any way that we can encourage people to come out and vote, I think, is good, healthy democracy. And I will support Councillor Lauren's amendment to have some way to vote as in a polling
There's
station
no
in a
amendment
traditional
yet,
way.
but point taken.
Yeah.
Yeah. Councillor Deacon?
I share the concerns that Councillor Lawrence stated earlier and was going to raise a similar objection in terms of the moving away from the phone voting as well. So look
Thank
forward
you.
to further discussion.
Thank you. Any other comments on this? So this item will be removed, so we're removing item F. Madame Camille Laflamme, c'est beau?
Yes.
Merci. Okay, any last comments on this? No, we'll come back to that. Alors, on passe à l'item G, Activity Report for FOIs and User Fees Report CSAS-CL 2025-03. So we're receiving this report for information purposes. Anything to add on this, Madame Camille Laflamme?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like indicated in the report, it's mostly for information purposes. And I know in the past we've been bringing 6-month semi-annual reports, and this was included in there. So there was a few times when council asked questions about this. So we thought we're going to put everything of user fees and what the department does, just so you have an idea. And if you have any questions or concerns, just let me know.
Fantastic, merci beaucoup. Clearly, the workload has been increasing, but one could say that it has leveled down in 2024. Madame Camille Laflamme or Monsieur Godin, is there anything that, in understanding this and seeing these come up, is there anything that we could do more from our perspective, either operationally or from a council's perspective, to help mitigate or reduce those furthermore in terms of transparency, in terms of whatnot?
I can take that, Mr. Mayor. So yes, we're presently working. It was on the bucket list to do last year, but with the elections, it was pushed a little bit. So it's called a routine disclosure policy, and Ottawa has it. Clarence Rockland has one. There's a couple of other places that have them. So we just want to update it a little bit, and it's probably going to come back to council. We're going to see it's a policy, and the policy, what it does really, it's what shouldn't go into an FOI. So maybe that could reduce some of the
Repetitive
questions. And just as for information purposes, I did a quick note on all the ones from 2024. Half of them are regarding planning and constructions questions, like if they want plans, if they want, name it, there's a lot of different ones. So this way it could release it, half of it could be done in another way instead of going through an FOI, which would reduce the time.
So just making it more efficient.
Yes.
With certain requests that come back regularly.
That's correct. So all the departments would be involved, and they're gonna check everything that should or should not be in there, and if there's a fee or not, so this is in the plan.
Formidable, merci beaucoup. Alors, questions, commentaires, membres du conseil, conseillère Deakin?
Just out of curiosity, does that mean that that information routinely, in a routine disclosure, means that it would be published online? Or does it simply mean that it would be prepared so that when the request comes in, it's handed over right away?
So the request would be a request, let's say again, through the planning or building or whoever, but there would probably be a user fee that would say, okay, if you want this, it's going to cost this much. So everyone, for the file or depending, that's what you would pay.
Yeah, so a standard fee. So for example, I would like a Freedom of Information request to have the plans for this property. Well, so that's a request that comes at times, and so that'll be a standard fee. It won't be a public information for that plan because it'll be different, but that request, that type of request will have a fee associated to it. And then it'll just be more of an automated process as opposed to an FOI. Is that correct?
Correct. And also there's going to be more information like, are you the owner? You're not the owner? Do you have the authorization from, like, all that will
Just be
stay.
standardized,
Yes,
yeah.
like third parties, like everything is. So it would reduce the streamline and it would be faster. But
Right.
there might be a bigger fee or maybe not because we still have additional fees depending on the request. So it's going to be determined.
Parfait. Autre question, commentaire, conseiller Armstrong?
I know in the federal government, having received a good number of access to information requests in the federal government, there is a federal government data bank that all information requests are then available on the net. So you can look up historically all of the information requests. So is there any thought that once an information request is fulfilled, that the results of that be published and available for everybody on the web?
Madame Gamiret, la femme?
No, we haven't looked at that. Yeah.
The only thing I would suggest, just look at the federal government's access to information site and see what they do. And I don't know how much it costs or anything, but they do it that way.
Just take a look at that. Absolutely.
Is it possible if you have?
I'll send you a link.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none. All right, moving to item H. Tariff Impacts Report CAO 2025-01. Before I give you the microphone, Mr. Godin, I wanted to thank you and your entire team for going down this rabbit hole. When the request came to kind of look at the long game, you're very receptive to that, and I truly appreciate that. And I think, speaking as a resident here as well, a lot of residents are concerned in trying to understand the impact. And so, putting this in the forefront and looking into it and trying to understand it as much as we can, of course, is really appreciated. So thank you very much. Anything to add, Monsieur Godin?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Maire. Bonsoir, chers membres du Conseil. So thank you for that. And like you said, it is a situation that's evolving every day. So obviously this report, there are numbers in there, but they're really high level and they depend on a lot of hypotheticals. But the goal of this report is to really just inform Council, highlight the potential impacts of those tariffs on our budget, and which are particularly important for the recreation complex construction this year. So essentially, we're just looking to outline the risks and explain what we're doing to stay ahead of it. No decisions are needed tonight, but there may need to be some reports that are coming up to Council to make some decisions if we do need to act on certain price increases. So at this point, you've all received the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Merci beaucoup. I noticed that the management plan was presented by Turner and Townsend. And is it safe to assume that we have approached McDonald Brothers in terms of reviewing the contract for additional clarity?
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. Madame Guittard might want to add to this, but we do, Madame Guittard and the team with Turner Townsend meet with McDonald Brothers every 2 weeks. And this is definitely on the topic of the agenda every 2 weeks. So we are working hard with them. So je vais laisser la parole à Madame Guittard si elle veut ajouter quoi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So like Mr. Godin mentioned, yes, we are trying to keep on top of that. We're meeting every second week as our regular construction meeting, and this is one of our topic every second week for the last month and a half. And they will be providing some more clearer insights and details in the upcoming days to try to keep us informed. Obviously, it is very hard to pinpoint everything exactly the cost, but definitely there will be some cost estimates and some assumptions if we can say.
Pour cause de clarité, je veux juste confirmer, my understanding is that for any taxes or changes in taxes or tariffs, they reserve the right to increase the price by that much, correct? Within the contract, that's how it's stated, correct?
That is correct. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is on the tax side of the contract. That is
Okay.
correct. And not, because there's also a force majeure, but it's not part of force majeure.
Okay.
It's part of the tax and duties.
OK, formidable, merci. Alors, just to follow up on that, Monsieur Godin, so based on your estimates as you presented, you had an amount of 2.3 million. I would probably venture to say between 2 and 3 million that may be of an impact. So is that for fiscal? And I understand it's for the capital project per se. This wouldn't necessarily impact our budget this year on the operation side. Is that correct?
Merci, Mr. Mayor. So those estimates are basically, they're based strictly on our capital budget. So they're based on our 2025 capital budget, which includes, we've included in this analysis the full construction project of the rec complex, so the full
Okay.
$86 million of that construction
And other
contract,
capital investments as well.
as well as our other capital investments. There could definitely be some indirect cost increases to our operational budget. We do expect, as a result of all of this that's going on, that the cost of living may go up. It's just speculative, but at this point in time, we don't feel like there's any actions or any changes to the budget that are required. But like I said, and like it's stated in this report, we'll be having some focus on the terrorist impact when we do bring our quarterly financial reports, and if there is a need outside of those quarterly reports to come back to council to highlight things are going worse than we thought, we need to either delay projects or reduce scopes or increase budgets, then we'll come to council at that point in time.
Merci, c'est apprécié. And just a background for this meeting as well, just confirming the estimate here is based on a formula that's presented by, if you want to give me that, by AMO?
By AMO. So on AMO's website, they have a section for tariff impacts, just to support municipalities and how to manage through that. And we did find a very interesting document from Oxford Economics, a firm that they hired to kind of evaluate on a municipal level how these tariffs could impact our capital budgets. One of the first steps in doing this was to survey all municipalities. So we did participate in that, in providing some information on our capital budget. They came up with a formula, not specifically for us, but it was easy to use that formula and to extract it against our own capital budget. So like I said, it's obviously a lot of hypotheticals. Every project is different, so it could be more, it could be less, but at least it gives us a ballpark number. And for me, it was quite reassuring looking at the numbers to see that, okay, well, this is still within our working contingencies, and it's manageable impacts as they're stated there.
Absolutely. It does give a little bit of peace of mind in this otherwise very turbulent time. The formula itself does not account for potential increased grants given the windfall for the federal government collecting tariffs, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Godin, puis à toute votre équipe. Questions, commentaires, membres du Conseil? Conseiller Lorrain?
Yeah, I think Mr. Godin just kind of mentioned it there, and you know, we talk about our contingency, especially for the major project, which is the rec complex, and our contingency is what, 10% on the, even if it's just on the 86 million, it's still $8 million contingency, and if we were to build it the full 2 million on it, am I off by the number somewhere?
Yeah, so for the rec complex, it's actually 5%.
At 5%, okay. So 5% brings us in the 5 million range, 4.5, 5 million range. And even if that full 2.1 million is stated in the report, which I know is for all of our projects, but even if it was for all, it would still be less than half of what our current contingency is for that project. That's correct? Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Conseiller Lalonde.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make a few comments maybe that are going to go a little beyond what we're doing here tonight, but I think the time is right, nevertheless, to at least broach the subject. I'm looking at and to Councillor Lauren's comments, it's nice to know that at 5% and that this 2.1 or 2.4 million, that we still have another couple $1 million to play with, depending on how things go. So that's a great sign from the group, from our staff, that, you know, we probably didn't expect to use this money for that purpose or to keep it safe for this purpose, but we have it for this purpose if we need it. I think that's great. It keeps us in a pretty solid position to the extent that we have all these incredible variables taking place right now. There's a section called Local Policy Considerations, and I just want to expand on that, and also Contract Review, which appears below it. So I consider the situation now, until we find out more on April 2nd, to be quite serious. I mean, the country's being threatened, our sovereignty is being threatened. Some people think it's just a joke, others are taking it very seriously. I take it very seriously. I know the Premier of Ontario is urging, I guess, through provincial government agencies to discontinue any practices of looking at or sending out bid tenders to American firms for the time being to quote on Ontario business, or at least that was my understanding in his comments of a week or so ago. I'm at the point where I would suggest even that at the municipal level, we give that some serious consideration as well. I personally don't think we should be supporting any suppliers going forward if the situation remains as serious as it is with regards to trade with this country and the U.S., that we should be at the same time awarding contracts to firms that are south of the border. The province has promised to come to the aid of municipalities or companies, businesses, in the case of harm through tariffs, financial difficulty. I'd like to hope that if a municipality should decide to invoke the same sort of approach, which is to favor Canadian companies or deal exclusively with them for the time being, that we would get that same kind of support. Maybe we should actually ask for it or solicit it through a decision of council to go to Queen's Park. I'm not sure. But suffice it to say that I personally would not support, if I knew that we were about to make more purchases with regards to the rec complex and that the goods should have to come from the U.S., in the climate that we're in now, which I consider to be very serious, that we would follow through on that. And to that extent, I'd be interested to know, I saw all these loads of steel coming in the last few weeks to the rec complex. That was exciting to see. Hopefully all that stuff was pre-purchased, and I don't know how much more has to come through, but I guess what I'm saying, maybe what I'm asking, is that in this area of contract review actions that could be taken ongoing to mitigate, what would be the cost of, and if we have that opportunity, if McDonald Brothers should tell us that, well, in the next 4 months we're going to have to bring stuff in from the U.S. that we haven't purchased yet, that we should have the opportunity here, I would like to have it at council, to be able to review that and decide, depending on the circumstances, whether we should proceed or whether we should retender that to a Canadian company exclusively, and what the financial repercussions would be of doing so if it was going to cost us an extra $100,000 or what have you. I'd like to know that. I think often we talk at council and we're out in the public promoting shop locally, buy locally T-shirts to that effect at Meet Me on Main Street. We appreciate the importance of supporting local, and I think that extends quite easily right now, quite handily right now to the situation that we're in, which is until and unless we find out in the coming weeks that we're in a better position than what is threatened right now, that we buy Canadian. So I just leave that out there. I'll stop there. It's mostly to put that out on the table for all of us to consider a little bit over the coming weeks, and for staff to consider as well. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I think at this point, this is just information coming towards us. Monsieur Godin, you're going to go back and look at purchasing and so on. I know that in looking at that as a challenge and an issue, we do have to look at the cost. We also have to look at the availability of the products. And so for me, I look forward to admin kind of coming back to us if there is a way that we can do this without impacting the residents or the project in a negative way. I have Councillor Lauren, comment?
I've got a couple, and I'm assuming that they're going to come back in the next meeting from Business Arising, because I don't think you're going to have the answers. But the first one is, I believe, Monsieur Godin, we touched on this at the last meeting, in terms of the ability for us to exclude certain companies or organizations based on where their geographical location is. I think there was some sort of an issue, unless that restriction has been removed, and we do have the ability to restrict in our tendering process.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So the only the concern I have with that is, for any contract that's above $100,000, we're subject to different Canadian free trade agreements with different countries, and we have that obligation to have an open process and to be open for anybody to bid on our tenders. Any procurement that is below $100,000, presently, as per our procurement policies, still require us to follow a certain process, but legally would not necessarily. I don't think we would be. I would have to validate this, but I don't think we would be going against any free trade agreement rules or any laws by restricting.
You don't think we would be?
Not if it's below 100,000.
Okay, but if it's above?
If it's above, we would be, as per our, like I said, our different free trade agreements that we're subject to.
Okay, and currently we don't. There's been no notification to municipalities of the ability for an exemption to exclude American companies?
Not that I'm aware of, but we can definitely look.
Can you look into that, please? Because that would fall under what Councillor Lalonde is saying. And again, I fully support buying Canadian products, buying Canadian materials, whether it was a rec complex or any other thing that we're building. I definitely agree. But again, we can only do what we can within the law that's in place, right? We can't just exclude it, because then we risk potential suit against us that will then cost us even more money. The second piece that I have is, in the contract that again, probably something we have to come back with, but in the contract that we currently have with McDonald Brothers, do we have the ability to restrict them in what they purchase for us? And I know that they tendered based on certain expectations, and if we change those expectations, do we have the ability to change those expectations? And if we do, okay, that's great, but if we don't, what's that implication? I hope you understand the question.
I do, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I do understand the question, and my response is what I was going to respond to Councillor Lalonde as well. So we do have a contract, and the contractors are responsible for finding subcontractors to do the works, right? So there would definitely be some impacts. So we would have to discuss this with McDonald Brothers. I don't know what those impacts could look like, and if it is possible to actually impose a restriction like that. What we do see in the document that was provided by Turner and Townsend as far as the mitigation steps is, we're going to be asking, prior to accepting any change orders or any extra fees for terrace, we'll be requesting a lot of proofs as far as McDonald Brothers' effort to mitigate those extra costs and to look locally and to look to buy Canadian or international, but non-U.S. international. So those are specific steps that were listed by Turner and Townsend as far as requiring from McDonald Brothers. But just to come back to your question, we can definitely have that discussion with them to see if there is that that possibility of restricting U.S. procurement and what that means and what that would mean for our contract as far as cost.
Follow up,
And ju-
Councillor Lauren?
Just to follow up to that, and the last piece of that we have to keep in mind as well is if they come to us and they say, here's what we have, do you want to alter this plan and go with this? We need to understand what the implications are from a timing perspective and whether or not that delays the project even further and what are the costs associated to the delay that would be added to that potential when they come to us with that information. That is important to know as well.
Mr. Gaudin?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. And that was my other, not concern, but something I would like for us to look at as far as if we're looking to get more information as far as not buying from U.S., rather than coming back to council every time that we have an offer to buy from U.S. I think I would be concerned there as far as a timeline perspective of having to wait for a council meeting for different procurement. So I would say we can come out of this meeting and look at this whole situation. I think we have a good grasp from your comments as far as what council's vision is there, and we could maybe come back with a plan of action.
Excellent. I had Councillor Lalonde and then Councillor Armstrong.
Yeah, I just want to clarify a few of the comments from earlier and certainly recognize that contracts over 100 grand, that, there are international agreements that are supposed to be respected here. So certainly in that case, I would expect that, we'd be looking for some sort of indemnification from the province that, from a legal standpoint, if we were even to look at that, to go into, put our toe in that water, it would require, as far as I'm concerned, to have the support, legal and otherwise, from the province, who maybe would indemnify us against against venturing into that area. Because if we couldn't get that, then we shouldn't be going into it on our own. So just to clarify that. That being said, April 2nd, things are either going to get much more serious or they're going to lower the temperature. And I think if things get much more serious, I think we're going to be back here talking about this at a different level of the thing. Because there'll be, I think, some much larger issues on the table and far more greater issues at stake than a contract with a supplier for the rec complex. And I certainly want to clarify that I appreciate, in the meantime, meanwhile back at the ranch, we're being extremely careful about what we're doing with an investment, a capital investment of $86 million to build and $104 million to finance, that we have to walk that tightrope and be responsible. So I'm not suggesting we throw caution to the wind. I'm just suggesting that if there's any opportunities and if things should get more serious in the coming week or so, and that we should be able to count on some support and indemnification by our province in the face of some international agreements like the FTA and the others, I guess we'll have the conversation if that happens. But in those cases, in that case, that if we thought we were going to get that support, legal and otherwise, I would be here again to argue for it.
Thank you, Councillor Lalonde. Councillor Armstrong?
Yeah, we've been discussing our capital budget at the last few minutes, but I'm also concerned about our operational budget. The operation and the life cycle management of many of the assets that we have may find its roots in the United States. Just getting spare parts for some of our mechanical equipment, our refrigeration equipment in arenas and stuff like that. That may we may find that tariffed as well. We'll see after in another week or so. And that is a concern for the longer term life cycle management of all of these things in our operating budget. So our asset management plan we may have difficulty with that, with the tariffs, depending on what they put things on. Can we get a part for something because it was manufactured in the United States? On the other hand, Councillor Lalonde's Buy Canadian may mitigate some of that in the long term if the supply chain and the life cycle management has its roots in Canada. That's something we have to have a look at. And I know all the documents talk mostly about capital budgets, but I am worried about the operations budgets, and we have to have a look at that in the long term as well.
Thank you, Councillor Armstrong. Mr. Godin, just to confirm, in the analysis, we also looked at the operations piece. Is that correct?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. So not in depth, but we do consider the operations as well. And on the life cycle, on the asset management piece, that's definitely a great point. And this report is really focused on the immediate and the 2025 budget, but this will definitely be a big topic when we do present our 2026 budget, where we'll definitely be talking tariffs and the impacts on the whole budget, including asset management.
Yeah, so I think just yesterday or the day before, there was, or following the meeting that Premier Ford had in the States, the reality is these tariffs are there because the U.S. is in major deficit position and they're looking to fix their books. And it's going to be a long-term strategy with some reductions down the road after they apply it. They're applying it to the world. So I think that's just a new reality now. And it's not just the U.S. I mean, China's doing it as well now. So I think that's just a reality of our operations, of our environment right now. Any last comments? No? Monsieur Godin?
Merci, Monsieur Mayor. Just a point of clarity, I guess. I think as a follow-up to these questions, we'll probably be bringing another report rather than just including it in the consent items. Just to set the table, I feel there would be a discussion needed as far as if we do want to encourage Buy Canadian, to what extent. Obviously, if the result of our analysis would say we should buy something from the U.S., it's probably because it's less costly there. So that there would be some costs included to restricting U.S. procurement. And there's that legal aspect that we will be looking into as far as if the province is willing to indemnify any legal repercussions of excluding U.S. in our procurement processes. So we'll be bringing that discussion to council.
Yeah, I think cost availability, and which impacts timing as well, right? So as Councillor Lauren alluded to, if we fall behind on our rec complex or any other major capital development, and that there's a cost associated to that as well. So, all right. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the work that went into that. And glad to see that we're being somewhat proactive on this. I think it's really important. So moving to item 12, reports from investigator or ombudsman. So 12A, Ontario Ombudsman Investigation Report, March 2025, 5 complaints, 2023-2024. This was brought up at the last meeting. It was just not voted on later on, and so it's coming back here tonight. Madame Camire, is there anything to add to this one?
No, Mr. Mayor. So as you said, the letter and report was presented in the last agenda, but we just never voted on the resolution.
Thank you very much.
Which will be at number 15.
Excellent, and we won't forget it. Any comments on this one? We already had a chance to comment 2 weeks ago. So item B, Ontario Ombudsman Investigation Letter, March 18th, 2025, March or April 2024 meeting. And so this is a new report received regarding 2 complaints alleging an illegal meeting of council prior to the April 29th meeting. So just like the one received last week, this report determines that council did not contravene the Municipal Act and hold illegal meetings outside of public scrutiny. Anything to add on that, Madame Camille-Laflamme?
No, Mr. Mayor, everything is in this resolution.
Okay, fantastic. Questions, comments, members of council? Councillor Lalonde.
Yeah, I appreciate the summary of it in the agenda, but I'd like, if I may, to just read the last paragraph of the actual report. I think there would be some merit in reading this out loud. Just the last paragraph, I'll quote it. The Ombudsman says, "In this case, I'm satisfied that the one-on-one discussions between council members did not materially advance council business or decision-making. Conversations were not aimed at making a determination. and council members discuss their options for filling the seat, as well as which council members would be interested in serving. But in the conclusion that in that case, none of those individual conversations serve to advance the business of the corporation. So I appreciate, again, being our group, myself particularly, being exonerated from any wrongdoing here. Thank you.
Thank you, Conseiller Lalonde. Any other comments? Seeing none, moving to item 13, notice of motions, we have none. Item 14, question period on meeting of the day. Any questions on meeting of the day? So questions must be in relation to the any agenda item. Before asking a question, please fill your name, address, and sign-in sheet. If you wish to receive a response from a member of council staff, please leave a phone number. State your name before asking the question, and disclaimer. By asking a question during the council meeting, you are consenting to be part of a live broadcast and the official recording of the proceedings.
Julian Hunt-Caster.
Welcome.
I had two quick questions this evening. The $2.1 million increase to our capital projects, is that for the total life cycle of those capital projects or just for this year? Like, for example, the rec complex, we're talking about around $2 million. Is that for the entire construction or for just the construction
So
portion of this year?
yeah, that's a great question. So just to clarify, this is an estimate based on a calculation, so it could be plus minus to that, but that's based on the best knowledge. Mr. Godin, can you clarify the rest of that?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So that the 2.15 million in the report for the rec complex is based on the full construction, so the full 86.
Full value of the project.
Second question, I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up, but we're talking about the online voting for the next election. And the clerk also mentioned going to events to look at new software options. I know the software we used in the last election did not support randomization of candidate name orders. I'd just like to ask the township look at software that does support that for the next election, because there's been a ton of research in the last decade that shows that the ordering of candidate names has a large impact on the outcome of elections. And it's a very simple thing to implement, especially if we're going online only.
Okay, that's not a question. You couldn't have worded that in a question somehow?
I said, I am asking
Oh,
township to look into software that supports this.
That's still not a question. Could township?
Could. There you go.
Just kidding around, but as a candidate with a last name Ternosky, I think I would appreciate that as well, so.
And I know Lisa Deacon also supports that, and she's up at the top. So.
There you go. Madame Camille-Laflamme, anything to add on that? Is that something that's a possibility for us to look at as well?
That all depends on the supplier.
On the supplier, but it should be looked at as something. If it does exist, then it's something that makes sense. Thank you.
There's other municipalities who do this, so it's
doable.
It's legal and we can do it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Harry Baker, 208 Forest Road.
Good evening, Mr. Baker.
Hello, 11D. Back to the 417 Industrial Park. I noticed in the geotechnical report that none of the boreholes went below 3 meters. And I'm just wondering, how deep is the bedrock on that site?
So, Monsieur Bourgon, I'm definitely not an expert in this, but I'm assuming the people that did this are experts. I'm not sure if you're able to answer that on the spot.
Mr. Mayor, so unfortunately, I don't have the answer. We did further geotech analysis for the construction itself, which is not related to the EA itself. So the study didn't require anything further.
So the study doesn't require those boreholes? Is that
No.
what you're saying?
But information that was maybe done in understudy, or we may have the info with the road construction itself. Unfortunately, I just don't have the answer tonight.
Merci.
I have a reason for asking. Can I give the reason?
Well, so just a second. I have Councillor Armstrong with his hand up.
Is the reason why they only went down 3 meters because this only looked at road construction versus some sort of a vertical construction?
I think Mr. Bourgon will come back to that, or do you have the answer to that?
True, Mr. Mayor, that's a That's a good point. The study only looked at road construction.
So possibly that's the reason,
Yeah.
but I think it's fair to say that we can come back with the official reason. Mr. Baker?
Am I allowed to say why I'm asking the question?
You can ask. If you put it in the form of a question.
Okay, I have to think about that.
It's a new game show we have
Yeah.
here.
Do you think the bedrock might be hit before 8 meters? That's my question. Do you
Okay.
think the bedrock at that location, which is Queenston Shale, the red, reason why we have the red soil, could be reached before 8 meters?
Okay, so we'll get that question answered for you. I don't think we're able to answer that here and see. So in answering that question, Monsieur Bourgon, if we can, one, get the answer to that question, and then two, understand if it has an impact or not in terms of the EA.
I think Mr. Begun knows why I'm asking the question, so I'm not gonna make it a bigger deal than that. but-
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Any other questions?
Just a simple question.
Name
Sorry.
name for the record?
Doug Esterbrooks.
Address?
Doug Esterbrooks.
I just need your address.
It's here.
Oh, it's written? Okay, thank you. Thank you, that's good.
believe
Thank
that's
you.
all I'm required to
No,
do, right?
You're absolutely correct.
Thank you. I'm going to ask, what is the cost of returning to paper manually counted ballots? If the U.S. Court Dominion software decision goes against Dominion, are we considering going back to manual ballots? Could we consider that?
Thank you for your question. Madame Camille Laflamme, do you have an answer to that question?
No, that's impossible to have at this moment.
Yeah, because we haven't gone to tender for that, so we wouldn't be able to answer that question
Do we
at
know
this
what the
stage.
cost was the last time we ran a manual ballot?
Madame Camille Laflamme?
The last elections before telephone and internet were not manually, they were with tabulators,
Yeah, so we haven't used a manual system since
2010.
2010. So even if we did have a
Yeah.
price, it would be completely irrelevant at this stage. So the answer is that I don't think we can get you the price at this stage.
The question then would be, if Dominion Software is found guilty across the globe for their practices, would we consider that? Returning to manual ballots?
I'm not sure the relevance. If any company that's found guilty of any wrongdoing in the business that they're doing, I don't think would be a company that we would select. I think that's a fair assumption to make. Madame Camille Laflamme, we would not take a company that's contravening the Elections Act, correct?
Correct. We have specific notes in the RFP of where they were before, how many they did in Canada, what happened.
Okay.
Like, so there are specifics there.
Thank you. I had Councillor Lauren wanted to state something.
Yeah, and tabulators were used in many elections leading up to the 2014 election, correct? Not just manually counting one by one ballots?
Correct.
And that would have been, I wouldn't even know how long ago that would have been, that we would have had manual, when I, just so we're clear, when I'm talking about in-person voting and putting an X on a piece of paper, it's still working with tabulators. It's just,
Yeah.
people come
I
in and
understand.
can put an X on a piece of paper, like we've done in the most recent provincial election, like we will do in the federal election coming up.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I can, if you.
Madame Camille
So
Laflamme.
tabulators, we've been using from 2000 to 2010, and before that was traditional.
Okay, so not since 2000. So previous to the 2000 election, have we used manual?
Just manual, counting.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
are those tabulators local, with a hard drive located in the municipality, or are they linked online anywhere? Were they?
Madame Camille Laflamme?
At that time, it was our own tabulators, yes.
Merci.
And going forward?
Well,
Would you request that going
nothing's
forward?
been sent, nothing's been confirmed yet, so
Would you
I,
consider that going forward? Just a suggestion.
Madam
I
Canela.
don't have a suggestion. My report is in front of council.
Yeah.
They will be deciding in a few minutes on how they want to
I'm
proceed.
just asking.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, any other questions? All right, so I do believe, before I go into this, we have 2 items to remove B and F. Madame Camille, is that correct?
Yes, but we need to put it on the table.
I
first.
understand. I
Yes.
just wanted to confirm the 2.
BNF, yes.
I've been practicing for this. I think I'm good. Okay, motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from departments and council committees. So I need a mover and seconder to put it on the table. Moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Deakin. Questions, comments, or amendments? So I do believe, Councillor Lauren?
Well, we need to remove item B and F, so I'll make the motion to remove B and F.
So we have a motion to amend to remove B and F. This is seconded by Councillor Deakin. I'll call for the vote to remove items B and F. A call for the vote. All in favor? And carried. So motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 11, reports from departments and council committees with the exceptions of items B and F. And this is moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Armstrong.
It's already on the table.
I was doing so well. It's already on the table, so I'll call for the vote. All in favor and pass. Thank you very much. So moving to item B. I have to read the item B, right? So motion that council receive report PD 2025-13 that dated March 24th, 2025, and approve a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute and affix corporate seal concerning a cash-in-lieu of parking agreement between the owner of the subject property and the Corporation of Russell Township for a parcel of land legally described as Plan HOWOOD 1898, Lot 14, NPT Lot 1, known as 1097 Concession Street in Russell. This is moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Deakin. So it's on the table. Any amendments? Seeing none, I'm going to call for the vote. So all in favor? Okay, comments? Councillor Lalonde?
Sorry, I'm just trying to write a note and pay attention at the same time. Got most of it right. I just want to, maybe the comment, I want to clarify something I said at the beginning when I made my comments, which was in reference to stating that I was one of the neighbors adjacent to the property and that my wife had a business. I want to be clear that I don't feel I'm in a conflict of interest because the issue with regards to the parking and what have you doesn't pertain to my property address or my wife's business per se, other than maybe the blocking of a driveway, but it hasn't impeded the operation of her business. So there's nothing to gain or to lose out of this unless it was to be brought up by yourselves here at the table. I don't believe I'm in a conflict of interest. It hasn't hurt the business, and it's not affecting the business. It's more to do with the property owners that spoke to me that are on the same side of the street as the property that's proposing the food truck. I think the other thing I'd like to clarify here before we vote is that notwithstanding what I think is a situation potentially of someone or a place where trying to do maybe a lot with a little, I certainly applaud all the efforts of that property owner and the businesses that he's and the entrepreneurship that he's shown over the last few decades. I think it's having a music academy and the Montessori school and the rest of it have been a real addition to the community. So I want to make that part clear. I just think that there are some pretty significant issues with regards to parking and landscaping and the very close proximity to a very busy intersection that I'm hoping that maybe planning department or the powers that be on staff can sort out and resolve and work with to come up with some better solution. So I just want to make those comments.
Thank you. So I'm going to proceed with the vote. So all in favor? Against? And so failed. Defeated is the right term. Thank you. All right, moving to item F. The council received report CSAS-CL 2025-01 dated March 24th, 2025 for information purposes. And one, that the clerk be directed to prepare a bylaw to confirm the use of internet voting as an alternative voting method for the 2026 municipal election. And two, that the clerk be directed to continue to partner with the interested municipalities of the United Counties of Prescott-Russell, United Counties Prescott-Russell to participate in a joint venture to prepare and proceed with a request for proposal. And this is moved by Councillor Armstrong, seconded by Councillor Lalonde. It's on the table. Questions, comments, amendments? Councillor Lauren.
I have 3 separate and distinct amendments, and I'll do them one at a time because they're separate and distinct, so I don't want them to be contingent. The first one, that we add a manual in-person process for voting in Russell and in Embrun using tabulators on election day.
So we've got an amendment on the table. Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Questions and comments on the amendment? Members of council? I do have a question on this amendment. If we say add a manual in-person process in Russell and Embrun, if I remember correctly, we already have one in Embrun considering here.
Using tabulators.
Using tabulators.
That was the distinction.
Okay.
That's why I have a third option further down.
Okay. So we call for the vote on this amendment then. So for, against. So we have a tie, so I got to vote. I will vote against.
Okay, item number 2.
Item number 2.
Amendment number 2, that we add telephone voting option as part of the tendering process.
So do I have a seconder on that amendment? Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. So adding a telephone option on the voting. So the amendment's on the table. Call for the vote. All for? Passed. Thank you. Third amendment.
Third amendment. Now the council has agreed to a internet and telephone option, that we add a help center option in Russell and in Embrun on voting day to further support residents in their ability to vote using internet or telephone.
So I've got an amendment proposed by Councillor Lauren. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Questions and comments, members of council? Councillor Deakin.
For that option, will that impact what administration needs to take away tonight, which is with regard to the type of voting and continuing to partner with the interested municipalities? Or is that something that we could look at once we understand the costing to that additional option, the additional service of the help centers? Is that, I want to understand how related that is, or if we could get a separate costing and come back and look at that together as a council at another date.
As just an operation aspect to voting. And then, so that's a great point. And then add to that point, correct me if I'm wrong, when we speak to voting day, we're talking about the last voting day because we typically have a period of voting, correct?
Correct.
So you're
my amendment is strictly for voting day,
last day then.
similar to when people would go in and use a tabulator. They can go into options, obviously, the Dr. Kennard Center and the Camille Piché Center. in Emblem as examples of alternate locations to allow for people to easily access the help center to vote on election day.
So Councillor Deakin brought up the point that this could be further added once costs come back. Is that something that interests you? Can we look at it that way, Councillor Lauren, as opposed to possibly defeating that amendment?
Monsieur Godin, can that be added to the report then, in terms of costing when it comes back, so I don't have to remember to bring this up 6 months from now?
Monsieur Godin, Madame Camille Laflamme.
Oui, merci, Monsieur Maire. I mean, if we're getting the direction to come back to council with that as an option with the costing, we'll bring it back.
Then I will remove the amendment and ask for the direction to be provided by council to staff for that.
So I think direction has been provided, Madame Camille Laflamme. Does that make sense?
Yes, so if I understand correctly, there would be 2 voting help desk in Emblem with the same, if we go voting telephone, so all voting telephone, and 1 in Russell.
Correct.
Is that correct? Yes.
So here, I would say probably Camille Pichet Hall and Dr. Kennard Center.
Yes, so
On
that could
voting
come
day.
back in the annex.
In the report?
Yes.
And costs associated in adding that level of service
Yes.
for council to make a final determination on that. Does that make sense? Is everyone good with that? Okay. So can we see the amended motion now?
Mr. Mayor, since we only had 1 that
Yeah.
was voted, I recommend going at the end of my report. Continue. So A would be the addition. So right where you see a possibility of adding, I would just go and before number 1, after number 1 and before number 2, we would just add the telephone voting as an additional option subject to the results of the RFP process and depending on if the vendor chosen offers this service. That's the addition.
That's the addition?
Yes.
Okay, am I expected to read that from memory based on what you just told me?
I'll just copy, paste what's at A, except I'll remove possibility of. So that's the addition that would add for the telephone voting.
D'accord, merci. Councillor Armstrong? Sorry, Councillor Lauren?
Yeah, unfortunately, that doesn't specify what we voted on as an amendment. We didn't add the caveat of if the vendor chosen offers this service.
Yeah,
So this means we will only be going with a vendor who does offer the service.
that's correct.
Okay, so that means I could go alone.
Correct.
So the RFP with a contract by myself, just so council knows.
Well, it could also be other municipalities that end up choosing to go with both,
Yes,
correct?
yes,
Right?
it's
Yeah.
just something could happen.
Yeah, so in terms of process here before voting, is everyone clear on the motion there? So as is plus telephone as the option. Not as an option, but as added.
As a requirement.
Requirement.
Just like to make one comment.
Councillor Lauren?
The comment I'm going to make is, while I will agree with the amended motion to add the voting option, I still maintain that we ought to have had an in-person tabulator voting option. So, but I will not vote against this amended because I do want the telephone voting option added in. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you very much, Councillor Lauren. So I'll call for the vote as amended. All in favor? And that is carried and passed. Thank you. All right. We are moving to item 15, resolutions. C'est bon, Madame Camille Laflamme?
Yes, 15B.
Yeah. So, yes, 15B, thank you. See, I told you to keep an eye on me. That's good. All right, so motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 12A, reports from an investigator or ombudsman. So I need a mover, seconder to put that on the table. It's moved by Councillor Deakin, seconded by Conseiller Lalonde. Questions, comments? I will call for the vote. All in favor? And passed. Thank you. 15C, sorry, motion that council approve all recommendations listed on the agenda under item 12B, reports from an investigator or the ombudsman. A mover, seconder to put on the table is moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Armstrong. Call for the vote. All in favor? And passed. Thank you. Moving to item 16, bylaws. So in terms of bylaws, the only one that we're removing, I don't need a vote to remove the bylaw.
No,
because
since it was
it's just not
defeated,
there.
Mr. Mayor, we'll just put a note in the minutes that as per direction, we're only voting on 38 and 40.
Perfect. So motion that council approve bylaws 2025-38 and 2025-40. This is moved by Councillor Lauren, seconded by Councillor Deakin. I'll call for the vote. All in favor? And passed. Item 17, new business reports. We have none. Item 18, other business presented by council members. We have none. Item 19, public consultations and hearings. We have none. Item 20, announcements. Do we have any announcements? Conseiller Lalonde.
Oui, j'aimerais juste faire mention de notre groupe dynamique de citoyens à Marionville, le comité des citoyens dont François Marion en est le président en ce moment. On a participé, conseillère Deakin et moi, dimanche à leur cabane à sucre. La salle était complètement pleine. J'avais pas été par chez eux depuis un escousse. C'est remarquable de voir le niveau de participation et pour peut-être souligner l'excellent travail qu'ils font dans cette communauté-là. Ça a été un grand plaisir d'être parmi eux. Alors, bravo à François Marion et le groupe des citoyens de Marionville.
Fantastic. Merci beaucoup, Conseiller Lalonde. They are truly an engaged group, and it's always a pleasure working with them. Any other announcements? I have one on just a reminder that Wednesday, April 2nd, we have our public engagement policy open house, and that, I believe, is from 5 to 7. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So we're encouraging public to engage and come to the open house and share feedback on our with our research group in terms of determining the policy. Any last announcements? Closed session. We have none. Right. Confirming bylaw. That bylaw 2025.
041.
041 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Russell at its regular council meeting held on March 24th, 2025, be read a first, second, and third time and passed. This is moved by Councillor Lalonde, seconded by Councillor Deakin. Call for the vote. All in favor and passed. Thank you very much. The next regular public council meeting will be held on Monday, April 14th, 2025. Thank you to all members of the staff for being here with us tonight and to council members. So we are adjourned at 8:09 p.m. Merci beaucoup et bonne soirée.